Hey folks, today we're going to have a first look at a game that is just on the horizon from Compass Games. Haha. This is Stellar Horizons 2. This is not an unboxing video, it is instead a first look with some commentary about this as well as the first game. This is more or less a sequel to the original Stellar Horizons, which came out, 4 or 5 years ago at this point. Before I get any further with this is a prototype that Compass Games was kind enough to shoot me a copy of, so it is not shrink wrap, but that is okay. So let's open her up and see what we get in here. Now, based on the previous game in this, I guess we're calling it a series now, because it was very successful for Compass, there's quite a bit of stuff in the box, although perhaps not as much pure mass as was included in the original. So these are the player boards that you get. I see that I'm framing them exceptionally poorly, which you get 7 of. So we've got the True Path, the Praetorians, the Syndicate, the Givers, the Transhumanists, the Consortium, and the Starfarers. Now, these are the sort of player factions. You might recall, if you've looked at the original Stellar Horizons, that it is a inside the solar system, almost entirely inside the solar system, space exploration game, sort of a build-your-own space program kit. This is a sequel in the sense that it takes place after whatever happened in Stellar Horizons, and mankind is now expanding out into interstellar space. So very exciting for me. Topically, this is something I'm all over. And I really enjoyed the first game, although I will absolutely admit that it is not necessarily for everybody, not because of its theme necessarily, but because of the way it is designed. I don't know if that's still true here, but to me, the first Stellar Horizons felt like it was designed like a war game, which, hey, I'm cool with that. So these are single-sided cards. And this will obviously accommodate up to 7 players. There will be, right around the time you see this video, a Kickstarter for this, and I would imagine that Compass is going to probably ship them not too much longer after the Kickstarter wraps. So we've got 3 10-sided dice, the 2 of which are actually percentile dice. The previous game is a percentile-based game, and a big, thick stack of baggies, which I will find a use for somehow. Now, these are the money, and this is quite different presentationally from Stellar Horizons 1 because, wow, these feel like super... Oh, these are like little pads. Interesting, you're going to have to separate these. So paper money, very interesting. We got some 20s, we got some 10s, we got some 5s, and we got some 1s. The previous game used chits, and there were quite a lot of chits involved at that point. I don't know that I can comment on one or the others feeling more pleasant to the touch than others. Here we have some markers, explore markers, and it looks like these are what we might call pollard markers, or what I tend to call rotary counters. And how I think this is going to work is the number that's facing up is the value here, and you're going to rotate it as you continue to explore, and then once it's explored, you flip it over and it's explored. That's what that smells like to me. And these are available in a couple of different colors. I'm not sure what that means. Had it been the previous game, I would have presumed that that was tied to the tech tree, which we will certainly look at in a minute. There's a big deck of cards here too, but I'm going to wait to look at that. We do get some paper, and again, this is a prototype, so bear that in mind. I believe these are basically final components, but not necessarily packaged in the way that they will be in the final game. This is a scenario guide. Looks like we've got multiple scenarios. We absolutely do. Yeah, a bunch of interesting scenarios here. Player reference sheet, combat. Looks like there's, 3 or 4 scenarios. No, there's more than that. There's 8 different scenarios. And one of the kind of challenges with the first game, I felt like, was the scenarios felt a little underdeveloped. That didn't bother me because we never played anything but the campaign anyway. But for those who want a somewhat more modular experience, then you might want to develop your own scenarios and scenario setups. We also have a rule book, which feels like 32 pages, 24 maybe? 20 pages. Big print, plenty of illustrations. I won't say that the previous game had the easiest rulebook, but it's pretty far from the worst rulebook I've ever seen. Not a tremendously complicated game either. I'm talking about the first one. This one looks to be, at a glance, of comparable complexity. and putting stuff in the wrong boxes off to the side here, but I guess we're going to have to deal with that because we've already done it. And we have this player guide. New players read this booklet first. This is something that did not appear in the previous game. Attention, new players. Blue boxes, very interesting. The game design is by Andrew Rader, who I believe to be an actual rocket scientist and who has a pretty impressive pedigree in game design, as far as I'm concerned. Worked on the first Stellar Horizons, of course, but also on Fatal Alliances, published through Compass, and he may have been involved in the previous editions of Fatal Alliances as well. We have player reference sheets. There's 2 of these that I see. Tech trackers, and here's the sequence of play. You had to use the booklets for this, as I recall, in the previous game, so this is great. There is combat in here as well as in the previous game. In fact, I kind of expect there to be a little more combat here. Here we have... oh, this is corrected playing pieces for Stellar Horizons 1. All right, so there's a whole errata board here, including errata for Triton and Ganymede. I'm not sure I ever even looked at the errata, to be completely honest. Now, you might recall that each planetary body and or orbital area or whatever it was had one of these tiles in it in the previous game. And that is repeated in a general way here in Stellar Horizons 2, but instead we have these huge panels, which I'm just going to punch out, to be completely honest about it. There may be a specific way that you lay these out, but the fact that they are on these sort of geomorphic things kind of suggests to me that you can arrange them how you want, and there may be support for it. I will be bringing you at least one additional video on this game, by the way, because I am already arranging the feat of getting it to a table in a few weeks. Okay, so you get quite a few of these. This may... I say may be a little less space hungry than the first one. The first one was very space hungry in terms of how much table it took up, but I could be wrong here too. Okay, cool. So you've got Sol here, no bases, counts as M-class for trade, and then each of these cards, and they are all, well, I don't know if they're all single-sided, but the ones I'm looking at the moment are single-sided. And there's 2 different configurations of them. There's these 4 hex tiles, I suppose, and then there's an equal number of 5 hex tiles. So I'm curious to know... oh boy, look at that. So here's the counter sheet. You can see that as soon as I picked this up, the counters all just fell right out. So what do we have here? We have the Franklin and the Hawking. These colors presumably tie to the factions. We do have a couple of blanks in here. The Zephyr, the Enterprise, the Majestic. Looks like we have carriers. I'm assuming, making some assumptions about how these things are... or they could, CV could stand for colony vessel too. I think that's actually more likely to be the case. There's a whole bunch of these. I'm going to try and not... there's a whole sheet of this, obviously, for all 7 factions, but they literally, the entire sheet just fell apart as soon as I picked it up. So bravo to whoever's doing the die cutting for Compass. This has been a thing that I've been observing for a while now. Let's get these out of the way. And I'm going to try it. Now, there's one more. Hold on. We got this guy here. Okay. So there's not like tons and tons and tons of ships, but there isn't a paucity of ships either. Okay. All right. So we get several more of these... I'll call them counter sheets. Looks like we've got some random events. Looks like we've got some survey rewards. So I'm seeing a chit pull element 2. I'm seeing that a lot of this stuff is pre-rounded, but some of it is not. I'll probably fix that. I do see synonyms here, but what are you going to do? Boy, look at this. There's a lot here. These are various tiles for various things, and interestingly, these don't have center nibs, so I'm not sure I recognize any of that. Here's some more hex tiles and square tiles. There's going to be some triangular stuff too. Looks like these might be pulled out of a bag or a cup as well. Now here we've got the tokens for the tech tree, which we'll look at in a second here, and some more of these pollard markers, which probably have 1 to 4 on the back. Indeed, they do. So these will let you count from 1 to 8. These look like general markers. Don't know what these are. I'm trying to make sure these don't like come out. Now, it looks to me like you are putting, we'll see if I'm right about any of this, by the way. It looks to me like you place these circular discs on the spaces on the planetary or system tiles. So, and those probably come out of a bag too. Now there is a mounted board, which is the tech tree, which, as you can see, 2100 to 2900, so vastly expanded time frame here. And this tech tree looks a little more straightforward than the one from Stellar Horizons 1, which was pretty sprawling. You've got the same categories, biology, physics, and engineering, and then you can work your way up this tech tree and eventually get to this really awesome stuff like interstellar battleships, for example. So this looks pretty cool. It looks like we do have some cross prerequisites in a couple of places here. So to build interstellar cruisers, you need Bussard ramjets as well. There's advanced fusion rockets, antimatter rockets, near light speeds. Looks like there isn't faster than light travel in this, which is, you know, a rocket scientist-y thing to put in your space exploration game, because we don't imagine that we will be able to do faster than light travel. Everybody hopes we're wrong about that, but there it is. So, all right, and we got this big deck of cards, which I'm having trouble getting out of the bag. All right, so genetic manipulation, fleet improvement. There's a lot here, more genetic manipulation. So we've got these in stages, 1s, 2s, and 3s. Looks like there's multiple decks that you pull this stuff out of. Fleet improvement and genetic manipulations. And they're all, looks like they're in stages 1 to 3 is kind of what it looks like. So let's see what a level 3 genetic manipulation does. Subterranean. Treat all systems as +10 max pop. -2 to opponent's ground, combat, and planetary assault rolls when defending. Cool. Okay, and then fleet improvement number 2 is deep core mining. Bases produce extra 2 billion when producing cash. So that is also cool. This looks very intriguing to me. I am into space exploration type stuff, and I loved the original Stellar Horizons. I'm not going to try and make a claim that it is the most elegant thing that I've ever played. It is not, but to me, it was a tremendous amount of fun, and I have been looking forward to Stellar Horizons 2 since they announced it. It was kind of either going to be this or an expansion to the original, and I'll take this too. That's fine. Well, I got a little bit of a ding there, but that's okay. Like I said, this is a prototype. 7 factions. This says 1 to 7 players. Average playtime is 20 to 90 minutes for scenarios, 6+ hours for the campaign. I can tell you that, while I don't recall off the top of my head what the game estimated that playtime was for the first game, it was substantial. It was kind of a play it all weekend type of deal. Some folks will undoubtedly call that a monster game. This is, I wish this wasn't the case. This kind of sort of fits, but not without mangling it. So very intriguing looking game of Stellar Horizons 2. And we're just going to throw this back in the box for now, and I'll sort through it all later. And then presumably at some point we'll also integrate these errata pieces into my original copy of Stellar Horizons, of which I was a pretty early adopter and a big fan. So, and frankly, I like Fatal Alliances a lot too, so there's that. So really looking forward to getting this to the table. I'm already working on getting the game together. I think it's going to be a 4-player game. We're going to do it in a couple of weeks. I've got SD, as of the filming, I've got SD HistCon coming up, and that's in the way of everything else right now. So, Stellar Horizons 2. I will put a link to the Kickstarter, which should be live when this video goes live, in the video description, so check this out. Looks like an extremely promising new science fiction release from Compass Games. For a company that doesn't do a lot of science fiction and fantasy games, it kind of feels like they're doing really well at the ones that they have released. Burning Banners was a big hit. The first Stellar Horizons was a big hit. Galaxy Force, despite its very pulpy name, also looks pretty cool. So looking forward to further science fiction releases from Compass as well. Massive thanks to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, whose support and encouragement make what we do at Ardwulf's Lair possible. Thank you, patrons. Links to help support the channel are in the video description, so check out the Patreon, the Ko-Fi, and the merch store where you can get snazzy Ardwulf's Lair t-shirts, drinking vessels, and other cool swag. There is also an affiliate link for Noble Knight Games in the video description. If you buy stuff through that affiliate link, it helps us support the channel with Noble Knight store credit. Thank you, Noble Knight. Until next time, thanks for watching, and happy gaming.